Good evening. My name is James K. Holder II. Some of you may know me as Sir James II. I'd like to welcome you back to the Weekend 10. This is our 10-minute rundown of the week's top 10 events and giving you what to look forward in your weekend. Today, as we know, is Friday the 13th, and in true horror form, singer Taylor Swift has made a daring attempt to colonize the natural elements with her release of the cover of Earth, Wind & Fire's September. Now, I took a moment to listen to this record. It was actually quite sad. It's kind of like if someone replaced all of the hot sauce in your wings with like ketchup and then like rinsed it off and then topped it with more ketchup mixed with mayonnaise. Taylor Swift should stick to pop. I'm not going to go as far as to say she should go back to country. She has talent sometimes, but this is not one of those times. So we don't need to wait until September to get the reviews on this. We don't need to wait until the end of April. What we need to do is pull the plug immediately and send Taylor Swift back to Nashville, wherever she came from with that track. Terrible. Speaking of the tall and talentless, this week, 6'8" stunt queen Jim Comey released a memoir entitled A Higher Loyalty. Now, I don't know if this higher loyalty refers to being fired after being asked for loyalty from President Donald Trump, but I do know that I will not be reading this book, and nor do I encourage you to read it. Some topics of the book include explaining why he's sad that Hillary Clinton supporters still blame him for his memo, which led to the later election of Donald Trump, why he wished he was capable of explaining better why he did what he did. What the book does not contain is an apology for that memo. It doesn't explain why he again released information about Hillary Clinton being under investigation and not Donald Trump being under investigation at the same time, and any other act of contrition that you might expect from the tall, dopey, and dim-witted former chairman of the FBI. I will not be following the story. Everyone in the world seems to be trying to lionize this man as a hero, and I am not one of those people. Jim Comey is a bastard. He's a screw-up. He deserved to be fired, and I really wish he were sharing a same jail cell that Donald Trump will soon be facing once he's convicted of any obstruction of justice charges, which are certainly on the way. Now, what's interesting, this week we talked about Michael Cohen, Trump's long-term attorney, and his involvement with several cover-ups. Now, it has been made public today that he is the subject of a criminal investigation, this being Michael Cohen, Trump's current attorney. And all of this has, of course, to do with the fact that his home was raided. There have been search warrants obtained for his personal email accounts and also his business email accounts with dealings with President Donald Trump. So we will see what that develops into. Now, one big story today is that President Donald Trump is thought to fire Rod Rosenstein today. Now, I'm kind of keeping an eye on my phone because it was expected that it might happen at any point in time this afternoon, and I don't want to miss a beat on the street, if you know what I'm saying. I think it's very important to understand that Donald Trump does not have the capacity, he does not have the ability or the right to fire Robert Mueller, who is leading the investigation into the Russia collusion scandal, but his only go-around is to fire the man who appointed Robert Mueller, who would be Rod Rosenstein. So the world is looking at that. Everyone on the left and right is threatening to march and protest in the streets if this action happens. Some news outlets, if you could call Fox News a news outlet, are already reporting that he's already been fired by Donald Trump, but we will see as the day unfolds. Now, in other Donald Trump news, the president has, in an unprecedented move, has pardoned Scooter Libby. Now, this is a man who was convicted of obstruction of justice. He was the former, I believe, chief of staff for Darth Vader, Dick Cheney, and Donald Trump has pardoned this man for some reason. I don't know if it's foreshadowing about pardoning other people who might be involved in the obstruction of justice charges that he might face coming up. We will see. I do know that Donald Trump has pardoned an unprecedented number of people since assuming office, and that cannot be taken lightly because I just don't understand how you have the gall to just sweepingly abuse the power of pardoning people with such flagrant disregard for why or how they faced conviction in the first place. But we'll continue to follow that story. Speaking of jail, Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, has announced a new program aimed at ushering people from the criminal system or former convicts or ex-convicts into the workforce. Now, this program, I believe, is called Jail to Jobs. And the idea is to offer vocational training to people in Georgia State prisons and also help them in job placement before they're ever released from prison. So that will allow people to not only gain skills while behind bars, but also once they are back on the street, there's no real gap between them being able to exit jail and then also return to gainful employment, hopefully. So that program was announced as a part of her 100 days campaign where she's celebrating having been in office as the mayor of Atlanta for 100 days. Now, in addition to this, Keisha Lance Bottoms has also shaken up many of things in asking her entire cabinet from City Hall to resign. Now, this happened earlier this week. It made major airwaves in Atlanta. And it's really painting her as a no-nonsense type. And she is holding true to her promise to clean up and clarify some of the corruption in the city of Atlanta. Now, many people were not huge fans of Keisha Lance Bottoms because they assumed she was sort of more staying the course of layers of corruption that had followed in the in the rule of Kasim Reed. That was the former mayor of Atlanta. And so we'll see where that goes. We will see if Keisha Lance Bottoms is about what she says she's about. Speaking of shaking and bottoms, Freaknik is returning to Atlanta. Now, this is going to be happening next weekend. So I believe that's April 20th through the 22nd. I'm warning you in advance of that weekend because if you need to have a plane ticket or train ticket or bus ticket out of here, you might want to go ahead and do that. Now, I do know there will be several events as a part of this celebration. And there's supposed to be like a mock car show here in Castleberry Hill. There's also supposed to be a concert or two around town. So just be aware that all this stuff is going on. There's also like a 420 Fest, which is like the white people's turn up. And so there's going to be a lot going on in the downtown central area. So be on the lookout for everything. The world has been focused on this other story out of Detroit. Now, everyone's witnessed that recently a Detroit teen, a 14-year-old freshman, was fired at after missing the bus. Now, this young man missed the bus on the way to school. His school is 4 miles from his home. He tried to walk the 4 miles and then got lost. Once he got lost, he knocked on a neighbor's door, and I'm assuming not neighbor, but like someone within the context of his community where this person's house is on the path to his school. Knocks on the door, woman answers the door screaming. She calls her husband. He grabs a 12-gauge shotgun and comes and chases this teen into the yard and fires at him. Now, this is obviously racially motivated. I don't know what would prompt this couple to terrorize someone who's just asking for directions to school, a freshman, who has to now run for his life to avoid being murdered on the lawn of a neighbor in the morning. I mean, this is just ridiculous. So this has happened. The man was a 53-year-old white former fireman of Detroit, the Detroit Fire Department, and he was arrested. He was released on $50,000 bond. And that's a story that we'll have to continue to watch to develop, but it's just really sad that we live in a society where a young man can't even pursue his education, can't ask a neighbor for help or directions without being essentially almost murdered. And as the day continues, we're going to continue to watch this final story of Donald Trump, who is apparently unraveling as we speak. He's huffing and puffing around the White House, threatening to fire anyone that he can to prevent the Mueller investigation into the Trump-Russia collusion from continuing. And so that is the Weekend 10. I hope you will continue to watch future episodes of the Weekend 10 every Friday. Make sure to check out episodes of my cooking series, The Counter, on Tuesdays, and also Not on My Watch, the weekly visual podcast, every Thursday. All available at www.holderstudio.com. Thank you. Remember to relax, relate, and resist.